This is the Bears Barroom Radio Network. The following program is recorded live and intended for all audiences.
Radio is scripted now. We just come up with it. We don't use computers. We don't rehearse. We're going to talk about this next. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Bulls. And then we're going to have Brad Biggs on. And then we're going to have all this. No. If you don't know what you're going to talk about in the top of your head before a show, you shouldn't be in the business. I don't know what you got. I feel like Vince Vaughn in a couple's retreat. The Sharks are circling. Old school, baby!
You're listening to the Mike North Advantage, and it begins right now.
That's right. The Mike North Advantage starts right now. I am Aldo Gandia, Mike's wingman, and Mike has done it again. Mike has lured over another great guest, and this guy is one of my all-time favorite Chicago radio personalities. That means we have two of my all-time favorites in the barroom today. I'll let Mike introduce him, but let me introduce Mike. Mike North, how are you, my friend?
Well, I said, what am I going to do, Aldo? We've had Joe Theismann. We've had Cole Kmet. I mean, we've had Mike Ditka. We've had Dan Jiggins. I said, now what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? I'm walking in the walls over here. What do I do? And it was right in front of my very eyes. All of a sudden, things are opening up. Are things opening up? Are the golf courses opening up? Oh, yeah. Are the stores open? Some. The beach is open? Not yet. But you know when you signal the opening of really Illinois, and I think if Governor Pritzker, who I'm sure has listened to us, is listening, you're opening up because the odds couple is opening up. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, one of my guys, what a great personality he is, an all-time favorite. The guy's like 25 years old. He's like in a kid band. He's like one of those guys in a boy band, for God's sake. It's Carmen DeFalco. What's up, Carm?
What up, boys? I wish I was 25. I don't know how I'm going to follow some of those luminaries that you mentioned that preceded me, but I will do my best. And it does feel like we're getting back to some sense of normalcy with the golf courses opening, and in Indiana, just to the east of us, you've got the bars and the restaurants opening, and hopefully it happens here soon for all the people that work in that industry, and the odds couple is back after, about a 9-week layoff, I guess, give or take, Mike. We are back this Friday night. That means sports are close to coming back.
Well, that's the signal. I think if you're going to have anything that signaled the opening of sports, it's the odds couple coming back Friday. Now, we have a new time, 7 o'clock. And I don't know, I guess that's going to be our time for the time being. So we're going to have to make a few adjustments because we started at 6. A lot of the NBA games I know start at 6, but there's also games that start at 7, games that start at 8, games that start at 9. I remember when we first started this show over a year and a half ago, and by the way, we're talking about the Odds Couple show on ESPN 1000. I remember we came in during baseball season, so we had to make all sorts of adjustments, and we made it through.
Yeah, I mean, you got to play a lot of those West Coast games if we're going to give out a play like on Friday night.
Right.
You're right, just because the timing of everything. Look for some of those West Coast games when football rolls around. I mean, that's what we love the most. Let's face it, Mike. I mean, that's kind of like I feel like it's certainly what I do best. It's kind of like our bread and butter, and that's what people have the biggest appetite for at this point: college and pro football. And those shows on Friday, we could do 3 hours just going through all the matchups, all the key matchups, and all the lines. So when that rolls around, it'll be all good to go. We'll adjust as we have to a little bit during the, during the summer. But I just hope we get to talk about, games, baseball games. I think it's all going to come back, and that's why we're happy to be back for sure.
Yeah, and I want to credit Mike Thomas, the head man over at ESPN 1000, good karma. You know what, they got hit with, as soon as they took over, they got hit with this coronavirus situation. He told me, Mike, you're going to be back. You're going to be back. I was worried about the product because we're going away. And I got to be honest. I mean, Mike, and I know we got some great people, hopefully Hawthorne and Prop Swap and some of those other things. But he was right, and we're back earlier than I thought. Don't you think, Carm? I thought maybe it'd be a couple more weeks, but Mike was a man of his words. He says, when the doors open, and I'm going to get there.
Yeah, no, I did too. I thought it would be maybe sometime after Memorial Day once we got some definitive word on what the baseball season is going to look like. So I was happy to hear it last week when he and Randy Merkin told me. I was glad, and it was. You're right. It was a little bit probably sooner than I thought, just knowing the way everything has been, even in the last few weeks, that we still don't have a definitive return date for baseball. We still don't have what's going to happen with the NHL, what's going to happen with the NBA. So I thought it might be into June before we got a chance to come back. But there are some things, there's some golf. I mean, there's this fun thing this weekend with Tiger and Phil and Tom Brady and Peyton. There's actual PGA events coming up in the next couple of weeks. NASCAR's back. The horse racing's been going on. Jim Miller will still be with us to give out ponies because there are tracks up and running around the country just with no fans. So there are, now we're starting to see more and more of these wagering opportunities.
You know what I think is great too is that when you start thinking about what we're going to be wagering on, I talked about this with you a year ago about the fact that the new handicapping slant to me is how we're going to have to adjust. And by the way, the odds couple, we were winning just like I win here on Bears Barroom with Aldo. And I've also been blessed with great partners over my career, like Dan Jiggets, Aldo, Fred Hubner. We got my guy, Doug Buffone, and Carmen is just another in a great line of people that I've been fortunate enough to be with. But, yeah, I got to say this, Carmen, it's going to be maybe a different type of handicapping if there's no crowds or sparse crowds, don't you think?
Yeah, and you made the point, too, about how different the baseball season is going to look here in this truncated season when you were on with me and Yerk a couple of weeks ago about what are the, first of all, the game has become so much about bullpens as it is. What's it going to look like in the first couple of weeks? What if starting pitchers, instead of going, now you think if you get 6 out of them, that's great. What if they still have to kind of slow build up to that as they kind of and they're going to have some sort of a startup period again. Don't get me wrong. There's going to be like a spring training 2.0. I mean, I do get that. But what if we see teams still be very careful with how they ramp up their pitchers and they're looking for 3 innings out of the starters and then it's turned over to the bullpen? When you're making a baseball wager for, when we're betting just the lines, Mike, you're betting the pitchers. The minute a pitcher is scratched, that game is off.
Yes.
If it's Kershaw versus Lester, you've got action, and then 10 minutes before the game in the bullpen, Kershaw comes up with the bad back and he can't pitch. Your action's off. You get your money back. That game is done. You're betting starting pitchers. And as the game has changed so much, and what is it going to look like now as they kind of slowly come back maybe in July? What is it going to be like without fans in the stands, without that energy, that emotion for the home team to sort of feed off of? These are all good points. It's completely and totally uncharted territory, not only for the players, but for the gamblers that like to get in on this action, and that they study the games, they study the historical trends, and they know some of the key things to look for when they make their wagers. Like, it might be all up in the air for the first 3 or 4 weeks that we do this.
How hard has it been for you guys? And I know this because I remember it's been going on since sports radio basically started in this town and other towns. July, late June, July was always a dry month. We'd always say, okay, the good guys, you separate the good guys from the bad guys because you got to do entertaining radio. You just went through 9 weeks of it. How challenging has it been? And you also had concerns. You have family concerns and stuff like that. And coming into the city and doing it, I mean, it had to be hard, but you guys have all been troopers. They're talking about essential or non-essential. It was essential for you guys to be on, and I think you guys all did a great job under the circumstances.
Well, I appreciate it, and I'll be honest, like, if you would have told me when this really started, I don't know, March 12th, 13th, whenever that was, if you would have said right then and there that we still really wouldn't have any live sports, and we still wouldn't even have any dates of when these leagues are going to come back by Memorial Day, I think the pessimist in me would have said we're dead. But that hasn't been the case. Like, we have found things to talk about. The Jordan documentary helped. The NFL being able to conduct its business because it was out of season and they didn't have to congregate. They were able to do everything remotely, free agency, the draft. That really helped us, I mean, to be honest. And I think it gave people that are stuck in all of this something, the guys and the girls that love sports, it gave them something else to think about. It gave them, even if they listened for 20 minutes, it gave them that little bit of escape that we always talk about that sports provides and what we do provide for them. So I think all of it has been surprisingly okay. I honestly, I don't know that I would have said we would still be finding stuff to talk about in the sports world with no live sports for over 2 months, but somehow we have. And now we're, digging up old memories from 30, 35 years ago about Michael and the Bulls and bitterness and anxiety and angst and all that fun stuff. Arguments that we had that you guys were having in the 90s. It's all coming back, Mike. It's cyclical.
Well, the Horace Grant stuff, to me, I remember being on the air through that whole thing. And Reinsdorf was adamant that they shook hands. But my deal was that doesn't matter. I mean, you might have hands and agreed, and maybe Horace was naive for doing it. But I think, some people have branded Horace Grant a liar. Other people take Horace Grant at his word. But Michael Jordan and others saying that, stuff was leaking to Sam Smith. And I remember that Sam Smith used to get scoops. I'm going, how the hell did he know that? So that whole thing's been fascinating. But I was surprised that Jordan lost to NASCAR this week. Even if it was a 4-part or a 5-part series, excuse me, I was surprised. They're acting like this was just another documentary. Listen, 5.9 is nothing to sneeze at. The Sopranos used to do $8 million a week. Okay, so that was the top form, and there was less cable back then, less outlets, and all this other nonsense. But that's beyond the point. It's still a great number, and it's a documentary. But I couldn't believe NASCAR beat them because I watched about a minute of NASCAR, and I wanted to look for some rope in the basement.
That's got to be, and I don't get much into NASCAR either, I know. I mean, I think it's got to be just everybody's appetite to see something live. I watched some of the, and I appreciate soccer. I mean, I really do. I like soccer, but I'm not crazy about it. Not like Freddie Huebner, not like Yurko. Some of the guys here, Jeff Meller, they watched a lot of EPL.
Freddie's been top soccer since the 80s.
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
And I watch it sporadically, but I actually, was it Saturday morning or Sunday morning? I can't even remember which day now. It might have been Sunday morning. I was watching some of the Bundesliga because that's the league in Germany that returned. No fans in the stand. I mean, it is bizarre, and we're going to have to get used to it. I watched probably almost the entire first half. I jumped in just a few minutes into the game, and I watched it through the first half. I don't know a single play. I maybe recognized 2 names. But it was nice to just kind of sit there and watch it. I think that's the appetite that everybody has right now for some sort of live professional sports. It's going to be a whirlwind, Mike, when if it all comes flowing back, if the NBA decides to play a finals, if the Stanley Cup, the NHL decides to play a Stanley Cup final, baseball comes back. I mean, it is going to be a wave, and it should be a fun ride, but our heads are going to be spinning if it all comes back at once this summer.
Well, I like Mike Trout now. He wants testing every day. I think Mike Trout has to realize something, that not everybody makes Mike Trout money. And right. I think there's guys making $500,000 a year, okay, that spend $3 million a year. Okay, that need to get back like other athletes need to get back. So I think there's going to have to be a happy medium. That's where you're going to see the union ownership come to fore, I think, in all the sports. And there's going to have to be, I think, don't you agree, some bend on both ends. I mean, if you're waiting for a vaccine, enjoy baseball in 2025. We'll be back later. I mean, come on. Somebody's going to have to bend a little bit. You've been going to work every day. We've been going. A lot of people go to work every day, shop, and everything else. So when they hear an athlete that's a center fielder making $400 million a year and plays in the outdoors, people start shrugging. I mean, there's other athletes that don't do that and make that kind of money.
Yeah, there's going to have to be, obviously, both sides are going to have to give a little bit. That's the way most negotiations always go anyway. We know that. Right. They're going to, for the betterment of the game, and if they deem that they can do it in a safe way, then, I think you're right. Both sides are going to have to give a little here, give a little there. Certainly from the owner's side, it's going to probably have to be caving on this idea that they want to split the revenue for the year with the players. I don't think that's going to happen. From the player standpoint, it might have to be somehow baseball's going to have to convince them that, hey, we've done everything we can do here to mitigate the risk for you guys. We feel like this is going to be safe. We're getting clearance from our local leaders, from our states. We can do this. We're going to pay for the testing on our own. Whether that's a bad look or not, considering the state of testing in the country, I'm not sure. Maybe a different topic for a different day, but this is something that baseball, that the NBA, these leagues are going to cover. And if they can do it and they can mitigate the risk properly, then I think you're going to see that coming together. Both sides have to give something here and there, but that they will come together and that they will play. They can say a lot right now. When it comes down to the 11th hour and like it's go time, I think these players want to play, and I think the owners want some sort of a season. And normally what we see happen is they find a way to agree on everything on the table. And I do think that's going to be the case here.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the Last Dance, by the way, I was contacted by 10 to 12 different stations. I've been on all over the place, so it's been a boon for everybody that was there. But besides the Last Dance, you did this for 9 weeks. I think 10 years from now, when you're still going to be a stud in this business, you're going to look back with pride at what everybody did as far as broadcasting. And folks, it's not, I don't do many pats on the back. I've always said you're paid to do a job and you do it. But this was extenuating taking away, a discussion of 99% of what your job description is. How you think you're going to look at it, and will you think you'll look at it the way I described it?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think we have all sort of been proud of the way we've kind of rallied together to stay on the air. Some of us, we do a really good job down here of distancing as best we can, cleaning the studio. Luckily we've had a steady supply of cleaning supplies, so that's good. Like, we haven't run out. We've got Clorox wipes, we've got Lysol, and so after every host is done, and it's only one host in the studio at a time, after every host is done, the studio is cleaned down, it's sprayed down, we wipe down the mics, the keyboards, everything. The producers do the same thing in their studio. There's really only about the same 6 or 7 of us that have been here pretty much every day. And like I said, we've all done a good job. Everybody's done their part away from here in their social lives, doing the distancing, trying to stay healthy. As far as we know, Mike, nobody here has had it. Now, chances are, I guess somebody has, but as far as we know, nobody's had it. Nobody's had a confirmed case here. We've all been healthy. Sylvie was coming down, but of course, with everything that's going on with Sylvie now, I think most people probably know Sylvie was diagnosed with lymphoma. He's in a battle. He's starting chemo and immunotherapy, so the doctor said he can't come down anymore just because he now has a compromised immune system. But so he's doing it from home. But it was just a few of us. It's basically me and Cap, the weekend guys. I think we've done a real good job of taking this seriously, of still coming down to do our jobs. Yerk and Waddle have done their parts to be home and to be safe. And I think you're right. We are all kind of proud. What we do in the grand scheme of things, like how much does it matter? I don't know. But like I said before, for 20 minutes, somebody's day has been just wrecked by e-learning and everything else that's going on and all the stresses of their day and all the stresses of the world right now. If for 20 minutes they can put us on, they can laugh, they can think, maybe they get angry, which is typical in sports radio, whatever it is, whatever emotion kind of gets them away from the stress of their day, if they're enjoying what they're hearing, hey, that's good. I'm glad that we've been able to provide that for people.
Now, you came right out of college, right? Where'd you go to college?
Columbia College. I stayed here for college and knew what I wanted to do. Went to a small liberal arts school here in the South Loop. And, I started working in this building, actually, at WLS Radio. Was my first job, my first internship and my first job. WLS Radio, and then I also interned for Gian Greco on the TV side for a semester. Got hired at WLS Radio, and stayed. Luckily, I never had to leave.
Did you get Did you get Mark's water and scarves? Did you get him? Were you like Charlie Hodge, Elvis the side guy? Huh?
I'll tell you, Mark was great. I don't think Mark ever once made me go out and get him dinner or anything like that.
Really, I know. That's good stuff.
he was so good to. I mean, and look at how many of us. Sylvie interned for him, for crying out loud. When back at Sylvie's a little older than me, so that was still the Channel 5 days before Marky came over here.
Right.
He was so good. That crew, it's so different now, Mike. I mean, back then, this is 98. I guess this would have been 97 into 98. When the sports media was still, from the television standpoint, was still thriving. I mean, you had Mark down there. You had JR, Brad Palmer, Blanzy was new in town. I mean,
Sure.
You had all these reporters and all these producers, and now it's so different. Everything's been scaled back, and the local news, local sports. I mean, we've seen it just sort of whittled down to nothing over the years because the way the world has changed, the way information is passed along with the internet and everything like that. It's so different. The newspaper industry has been scaled down. Local news has been scaled down. But it was such a fun place to be back then in what was a really thriving newsroom. And it's just
the
even
90s
radio,
were
it's not that way anymore.
Yeah, the 90s were crazy, what I can remember of them. They were unbelievable. I mean, for the electronic media especially, the newspapers, I think, started to get the message, sports radio, TV, and stuff like that. All right, we're with our buddy Carmen DeFalco. He's got a few more minutes with us. I'm turning it over to Aldo Gandia with some questions and some stuff from the chat board. Els?
Yeah, I'm going to actually choose all of these questions from the chat room because we've got so many, and so many of these guys are asking fabulous questions. Let me start with Zach Sullivan. Zach wants to know, do you think that not having fans in the stadium is going to result in higher or lower scoring in sporting events, like, for instance, a football game?
Jeez, that's a good question.
Isn't it?
Man.
Yeah, it's a great question.
I don't know if anybody knows. I don't know if we're going to even be able to tell what the real correlation is. It's going to be, hopefully this is only a one-off year too, where we don't have to have this going into 2021. I mean, so how big is the data sample going to be, and what's it really going to tell us? I mean, that's a really good question. I mean, I think, I don't know, Mike. I mean, don't you feel like athletes, even sometimes on the road, guys feed off of the chiding that they're getting if they're close enough in proximity to the fans, especially in baseball or in basketball, where they can hear the trash talking that's going on. Like these athletes, I think, really thrive off the energy in the building, don't you think?
Absolutely. Pete Rose played for the fans. That I know. Pete Rose put on a show, sliding head first. Playing at Wrigley Field. They used to, Dusty Baker used to be in left field, or Bake McBride, Pete Rose in right field, people chanting Rosie, Rosie. They wanted to come up to bat and then, get back at the fans. I think that the fans play a huge role, but, I hear this, we practice under these conditions, so with nobody around. That's not the point. That's why it's practice. When there's a game, it's going to be different for these guys, but you know what? Everybody screw up playing high school baseball in front of crowds of 35?
Yeah,
exactly.
It'll be interesting to see, at the midway point of the NFL season. Let's look through 8 games, through 8 weeks, and then and let's see, maybe what the scoring looks like league wide compared to what it did last year, and see if we can start to get an idea. I'm gonna have to remember that question. Remember, hopefully, when we hit the halfway point, through 8 weeks of the season, we can take a look at that and just see if we can glean anything. Will it be dramatically different? Will it be about the same? I look forward to seeing what that's like.
Yeah. I remember when the XFL started, and with all of the new rules that favored scoring, the first few weeks, I figured that every game was going to go the over, and it was completely the opposite. It took a while for the quarterbacks to get adjusted, so this is going to be interesting. All right, Q from Quincy wants to know, what do you think about the Kentucky Derby now being moved, and it's the second leg of the Triple Crown?
Yeah, I saw that because the Belmont's going to actually go running now in June. Listen, this whole year is just, it's crazy. It's a one-off, like I said, hopefully, and we just have to deal with it. I mean, so it is what it is this time, and it'll always be a huge part of our memories in sports history, and we'll talk about it, like Mike said, for years and decades to come. But I still look forward to the Kentucky Derby more than anything, just because that's the one with seemingly the most historical significance and the most pomp and circumstance. So I still am looking forward to watching the Derby when it rolls around in September, the Masters in November, assuming all these things go off. It's going to be a little weird, but it is what it is. We deal with it,
I know you've got a commitment here at the bottom of the hour, so I'll ask you one more. George asks, which Chicago team is closest to a championship?
Oh, that's another good one. I mean, to me, it's I think that's what I was going to say. I mean, but I still don't trust the quarterback situation that they have going on. But
right, that's tough.
I think it's the Bears. And I don't, and I still think the Cubs have a chance to be a pretty good team. I mean, I still think there's talent in a short season with more variance. Maybe that even helps them. Maybe it helps a guy like Darvish. I still think the Cubs have potential in the next year or so, while they still have Chris Bryant to be pretty good. But yeah, I think probably the Bears, Mike.
Yeah, you know what, and I'll tell you, that's how I'd lean. But you're right, the quarterback situation, for anybody predicting this team to win over 10 games, you got to get the quarterback situation straightened out in the game of NFL football before you can think of any team being viable without a known starting quarterback. But I'll tell you what, Tom, you're always a starter. Thank God. I remember when Adam Delavant and Pastor said, "What about this guy Carmen DeFalco?" I go, "Which one's he now? Is it? I get him and Sylvie mixed up. I remember." And he goes, "No." And I said, "Yeah." And it's turned out to be a great thing, Carm. And you know what? I think we got a great franchise. Mike Thomas is basically moving this baby along nicely, and ESPN 1000. So it's going to be exciting to be back. I think I'm coming down on Friday for the first one at least, and I'll have this. Are you guys? Everything's wiped down and everything. I'll be very, very careful. And tell Rand. By the way, tell Sylvie. Hope he. We're rooting for him. It's been it's a challenging time, and also Randy. Is his head getting big because of the fireside chat things he's been doing? He's starting to think he's like all that. Randy Merkin. Those have been good things on Twitter.
They have been good. I don't think the nice thing about Randy is his head never gets too big, which is good because the second we notice that it does, we find some way to pick on him and bring him back down to earth. So that's
he's
just
a
how
great
we bust
guy.
his chops. He's great.
It's a great job. It really is.
And I'm glad that. And I'm glad that we're back Friday, so I'll see you Friday. Can't wait. It'll be fun.
All right. Carp, thanks for coming on, buddy.
All right, guys. Aldo, good talking to you. Mike, thanks as always.
Take care, Carm.
You're the best. Thanks, Carm. That's Carmen DeFalco from ESPN 1000, who basically, I think, if you're a radio guy, you've been on for 9 weeks under these type of conditions, and you know what? You haven't skipped a beat. You've done your job. Good for them. And everybody else that does jobs that have helped make or tried to make people's lives a little bit easier in this time. And here's my guy, ladies and gentlemen, Aldo Gandia.
Hey,
what's up, Al?
Well, I got to tell you, every time I hear you and Carmen together, it is radio gold. I mean, I love the Odds Couple, and like I said at the top of the show, and I am not bullshitting, it truly is. You two guys individually are two of my favorite all-time Chicago broadcasters, and both of you together is just genius. And so everybody in the chat room is talking about Friday. Can't wait for Friday. Q from Quincy just posted it, and I'm sure it's going to be our big ratings hit. We need you guys back on Fridays with the podcast up on Saturday morning, right, on ESPN 1000.
Well, we got an encore on Saturday morning, which is great. It's like Bonanza. Remember, you'd watch Bonanza for the hour, but then you didn't get another Bonanza the next day.
Right.
So it's like watching Bonanza, or it's like even Friends 2 days in a row. Well, Friends is on every station every day.
Oh, yes.
Now, but, I mean, my God, you can't run from it. You know what's amazing? I never watched the show. That's the amazing thing about Friends. I never watched it. But, for people that did, I mean, it's cornucopia. I guess it makes money. Seinfeld's another one I never watched a whole lot of. I don't know what I was doing at that time, but it wasn't watching network television.
That's right.
I think Nash is the one I remember, the one that with the lousy ending,
Yes. By the way, it's Q from Cincy, not Q from Quincy, like I said. So that's why I don't listen back to my shows, because I just cringe when I make mistakes like that. Sorry, Q.
We haven't been making many, my friend. We've been on every week, too, during this pandemic. bringing on people that are pertinent and doing stuff that we got to do. The barroom's been doing great, too, during this whole thing. And Carmen was right about the NFL. I mean, the NFL's been not only the Last Dance with Jordan, but the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, there's still a number of questions that I wasn't able to get to, Carm. I would love for you to answer them. For instance,
sure.
Chubbs82 says that he wonders if the Bears are putting Mitch and Nick Foles in a position to be scapegoated if the season doesn't go well, just so that Pace and Nagy can save their jobs. Interesting question. What do you think?
I think that that Trubisky was scapegoated last year.
Yeah,
I do. I think that he did some bad, not so good things. He did some good things. I think he played tentatively. But you've had Nagy already admit to what I told you. I'm hearing everybody saying, "Well, I knew it was a bad move." I was on this show when Nagy decided not to play the starters in preseason, and I said to Aldo, I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
When you're a boxer, you have to spar. I don't care. And sometimes when a boxer spars, they get hurt. You'll hear, well, the fight's been canceled for 6 months because so-and-so broke his hand. They have no choice. They still got to practice and spar to get ready for the big day. And for the Bears not to have practiced or played their starters one iota is still one of the more fascinating, mind-boggling things to me I've ever seen a professional football coach do. And I know he wasn't the only one, but now they've done an about-face. So there was a lot of people to blame last year, including Trubisky. But, I'm going to see, once they pick their quarterback, it's going to be they're the ones that signed Foles, they're the ones that brought him in, or they're the ones that stuck with Trubisky. So I think blame is going to be passed around, Els.
I agree with you. It's a great point. And, that interview with Matt Nagy that he had with the press on Friday, and then he was on a couple of the radio shows. We played some clips on one of our shows here from his appearance on ESPN.
Right, you did a good job, right.
Yeah, and, it was interesting to hear Nagy say, I did a lot of things wrong, not playing the starters and blah, blah, blah. But the thing is he credible? Is he really going to change his stripes? Or, that's my biggest thing. I just have some doubts about how much he's going to change. So
I never in my lifetime saw a football coach take practice and take preseason so lightly. And they got what they deserved. They weren't ready. You have to be toned. You have to be ready to go. You have to. New England was playing their players.
Right.
You go by I'm looking at great organizations playing their players. Now, you can be like McVay. It blew up in their face, too, the Rams. So I think this nonsense of keeping people healthy, but yet dismantling any kind of format of practice or procedure is over with, hopefully. At least in Chicago, it was a dumbass thing to do by a dumbass football coach, in my opinion, for doing something like that, and especially going up through the ranks of the National Football League.
Yep. Lady Bear has a great question. She asked, do you think these games that are getting pushed back now into the colder months will have an effect on play, and particularly from a bettor's standpoint? You know more than anyone else that as the colder months happen in the NFL, scoring has changed and so forth. What do you think about, from a betting standpoint, how pushing games back is going to affect things?
Well, yeah, I think we got to see how this pans out. As far as I know, they're still going to start the football season on time, right?
Yeah, I guess they are, right?
Yeah, I think the baseball and all this nonsense. Look, I don't want a baseball season. In fact, since they gave the Astros and let them keep their championship, I could care less about baseball right now. And I don't think I'm going to and the Red Sox got a slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
So you know what? What goes around comes around. I could care less if they play a season this year. And Mike Trout crying and Snell crying he wants his full pay. I think that fans basically could care less. I think it's a bastardized season anyway. And the same goes for the NBA. The NFL, if it doesn't start on time, So we might go back to, 16 games like it should be anyway, or 14 games like it was 20 years ago? That's fine with me. Yeah. But anything else, I mean, if they have to play in cold weather, that's the way it goes, you know?
Yep.
Or if they have to different times, that's the way it goes.
Barlissimo wants to know who's going to win.
I love Barlissimo.
Don't we all?
Yep.
He wants to know who is going to win the most games this season, the Cubs or the White Sox. That's something you and I always talk about as baseball season comes near.
I just thought I told everybody, and I know we might have chatted this in earlier. I don't care. I really don't care. How are we going to... It's an 81-game schedule, maybe, or they're afraid. I don't want, if you don't want to play, don't show up, or if you don't want to play, don't play.
Mm-hmm.
I think people mostly are gauging towards the NFL, man, and towards college. And we don't even know what's going to happen with college.
Yeah.
I mean, this whole thing has turned into a nightmare.
It really has. It really, really has.
It's turned into a complete I mean, I heard the Preakness. Now, maybe I'm wrong. It's going to be shorter.
Is it? Really? I had not heard that.
Can you look up Preakness being shorter?
Sure.
I think they do 1.5 miles, but I thought I saw in the crawl it's going to be shorter. Why? The horse is going to get it? I don't understand this nonsense. Maybe I read it wrong.
Yeah, let me check it out. I'm hitting the Google
I was
machine.
in the workshop, and I don't even have a workshop earlier. I'm looking for one.
Yeah, you are indeed correct. The Belmont Stakes is being shortened. It says the good news for horse racing fans is there will be a Belmont Stakes that will take place June 20th. The other news for racing fans, it will be run at 1 1/8 mile and not at its traditional 1.5 miles. So,
right.
Yeah, so I don't know why, but...
Why in that? They're horses. That's their job. In fact, that's how they play. Everything they do, they run around. It's like me when I used to go bar hopping. You know you're going bar hopping, you do it. It's like a horse running. That's what they do. Why are they shortening it? Is somebody going to get the corona if it's an extra quarter mile? Unbelievable.
It's crazy.
Everybody's
world.
Lost their mind.
It's a crazy world. Chubbs.
I'm telling you, I'm going to go buy. I'm shopping for hazmat suits. They're $60. Listen to this, Aldo. If there's a barber out there that wants to make a lot of money, there's hazmat suits that you can buy for $60. You charge $100 for haircuts, go door to door.
Yeah, hey, trust me, I would pay $200 for a haircut right now. My hair is so shaggy, it's unbelievable.
I'm looking like the lead guitarist for Bachman Turner Overdrive around this time right now. I'm telling you.
Mike, I don't know if you've heard the controversy here. Chubbs has brought it up in the chat room. Wants to get your opinion on this. But Fat Mike, the host of the Fat Mike Chicago Sports Show on Mondays here at the Bar Room, he is a huge Chicago Bears fan. But he also revealed that his favorite quarterback is Brett Farve, and he even posted a photograph of himself wearing that Brett Favre jersey. So Chubbs wants to know, is it possible for a Bears fan to love Brett Favre? Your thoughts?
Well, I was disturbed. You got to be disturbed. But I wasn't against it. Like some guys were against it, some folks were disturbed. The disturbed and the against it outweighed the we're good with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I was surprised by something called Bears Barroom, and I think it's more respecting. When I was growing up, I respected Green Bay. Bart Starr, Willie Wood, Willie Davis, Paul Horney, Jerry Kramer. I can name you the whole lineup. I can name you the defense. I respected them. Mm-hmm. And Bart Starr was better than any quarterback we had. So, but I didn't buy a Bart Starr jersey. You know, I'd walk around with it.
Never.
I'm a Bear fan.
Never.
So Fat Mike, well, look, like they say in Green Book, it's a complicated world. I don't know what Fat Mike's got.
It is funny because
I don't understand. He was on Bears Barroom, but there's no Packers Barroom, you know. So I don't know. So he rooted for Favre against the Bears?
No, he never rooted for Favre against the Bears. He just appreciated his prowess.
He just liked them. He appreciated his greatness.
Exactly. And which of
I'm
course.
With them. I was a little disturbed, but I'm starting to sway. Yeah. I like Fat Mike.
I love Fat Mike, but I got to tell you that if I'm walking around Chicago wearing a Brett Favre jersey, I imagine I'm going to get my ass kicked in about 10 seconds.
Right? No way,
So,
man.
I don't know.
No way. I did have a Bradshaw jersey when I was younger, but that was the other league.
Yeah.
And that was the, number 12. I love the Pittsburgh Steelers jerseys. Mm-hmm. They're gorgeous. The black with the gold trim and white, they're gorgeous.
Right, and the Boston Bruins, too.
My uncle, I liked Terry Bradshaw. I did. I thought he was a great quarterback. He's not talked about. And I had a Bradshaw, but that's AFL. That's AFC,
Yes, that is so true. All right. We talked about Horace Grant earlier. You and Carmen DeFalco, you brought it up. I wanted to play that clip of Horace not being real happy with Michael Jordan for saying that Jordan was, for Jordan saying on The Last Dance that Horace Grant was the one that was feeding Sam Smith all this information that Sam used in his book, The Jordan Rules. This is Horace Grant. You've probably heard this soundbite before, but let's play it in because it is juicy gold stuff.
That is a downright, outright, completely lie. Lie. And as I stated, if MJ had a grudge with me, let's settle it like, man, let's talk about it, or we can settle it another way. But yet and still, he goes out and put this lie out that I was the source behind. Sam and I have always been great friends. We're still great friends. But the sanctity of that locker room, I would never put anything personal out there. The mere fact that Sam Smith was an investigative reporter, that he had to have two sources, to write a book, I guess. Why would MJ just point me out? Okay?
Right.
It's only a grudge, man.
Mike, he calls Michael Jordan a liar. He challenges Michael Jordan to a fight, and he's become a journalism expert by, citing that he needs two sources. What do you think?
Well, he says he needs two sources, so apparently he was one of them.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought.
I mean, that's the first thing that came to my mind. I thought at the time Reinsdorf was telling the truth. I did, and I still do, with Horace Grant, as far as when they shook hands.
Right.
And then Horace went back to Sexton. And Reinsdorf tried to pull a fast one, but that's not the point. Horace agreed to it.
Right.
And the fast one wasn't bad. Mm-hmm. You're going to get like $20 million for 5 years, what have you, So Reinsdorf thought that they had a deal, and I always believed Reinsdorf there. And plus, I've heard Horace has a history of telling fibs.
Mm-hmm.
But it's amazing after 30, 35 years. Geez, I thought only 80% of America held grudges, but the Bulls, my God, that's not a grudge. That's a life sentence.
That's
right. 30 years ago?
That's right. And
you talk about somebody having a condo in your head. Wow.
That's right.
Even I let go of things after a while.
Well, Horace...
My God, that's a long one.
It really is. And Horace
But he did refresh, but it did make them... Look, Pippen and Grant came out looking... I thought Grant came out looking okay. I thought Pippen came out looking bad. He saved some skin by basically saying that Krause was a great GM.
Yes.
Finally, somebody gave Krause some credit, and it was Scotty.
Yeah.
So he woke up to that fact. But I thought for these two guys, it was seedy, some of the stuff.
Yeah, you ain't kidding. You ain't kidding. And this is Horace, and this, of course, is courtesy of Cap and Company over at ESPN 1000. They had this great interview with Horace Grant yesterday.
Yeah,
and
great job by Cap. At a dead time, look what they come up with this deal. Great job.
How about it? And so this is Horace's final thoughts on Michael to wrap this up.
He said I was a snitch, but yet and still after 30 or 35 years, he brings up his rookie year going into one of his teammates' room, his former teammates' room, and seeing coke and weed and women. My point is, why in the hell did he want to bring that up? What's that got to do with anything? I mean, if you want to call somebody a snitch, that's a damn snitch right there.
Ooh, what do you think of that, Mike?
He's sort of half right about that.
Yeah.
But I think what Michael was describing was what he had to take on. and that he had to walk out of there. But, yeah, you look at who was on the team. I don't think to people that were covering it, or to some Chicagoans, it was a mystery. But, for instance, I brought up, I had never heard the term cocaine circus. Maybe I had, and I forgot about it. The score wasn't on the air yet. I was following the Bulls like every other fan. But I knew Woolridge was on that team, and Quentin Daly and other people. So, I'm going to buy half the horse there of what he's saying, because Michael did basically single out those guys, and he said the whole team was over there.
Right.
So,
well,
that there's some people's wives or girlfriends looking at the old pictures.
That's right. You were doing what?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I wasn't there, I swear, that night.
That's right. I swear, honey. Well, and here's the thing, is that Michael's point was, I came into the league wanting to win. And then when I go into this room and I see my teammates are all getting high, they're screwing around, they don't care about winning. So he brings
the coaches are giving cigarettes to the players at halftime.
Exactly. It's like
it had to be Kevin Loffrey.
Well, so I kind of get that, but I also understand the sanctity of the locker room and teammates. So I'm a little bit torn on that, but hell,
I'm 50-50. I'll give Horace credit for that. I'll give a tip of the cap.
Yeah. So what are your final thoughts on The Last Dance? 10 episodes really took us back to that great era of 90s basketball and Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls 6 championships. Your overall thoughts on that series?
My overall thoughts, Aldo, were exactly what I called before it started. That you're not going to see a lot of Chicago broadcasters, whether it's Lou Canellas, whether it's Dan Jiggets, whether it's Corey McPherson, Tom Dorb, myself, Terry Boers, Dan McNeil, no score stuff. Mike Francesa was the radio voice, the Malone radio when they played the Knicks. I don't care. I just said that there wouldn't be Chicago points of view and different stories, because all of us got better stories than for the 93rd time the Steve Kerr fight story or all the other stories that we knew. I think I knew 98% of it, but it's Jordan. I enjoyed it, and it was a good respite. So I give it a B+. I know, and Michael's, they're already talking about it, and I think it did good. I think it came at the right time. I do think if I am the family, I mean, if there was a deal on my dad, a 10-page documentary on my dad, and I was given like a minute as a son out of like 10 hours of a documentary, I'd feel bad.
Yeah,
I feel bad a little bit. And they finally got in at the end, and I'm still looking for Juanita. So I thought that, and that was never explained. So we could say, well, maybe they have an agreement or anything else, but there was like a couple still photos, and the kids just got barely some playtime at the end. So I thought it would have been nice to put them in a little bit more, but that's his decision.
Hey, Q has a great question in the chat room. He wants to know, are you going to watch the next documentary that's coming out of ESPN, and that's the Lance Armstrong documentary where he fesses up and the other bike riders talk about their use of steroids and stuff?
I'm not. You know what? I might watch some of it, but it won't draw me. I might watch McGuire and Sosa, but I was there. It's another BS thing. I don't want to see. Baseball. They tout their criminals.
That's true.
I mean, Pete Rose, McGuire, Sosa, Bonds. I mean, my God, you can't get away from them. And the good guys you never see again.
Yeah. Yep.
It's really amazing to me. So I'm not, they're not going to draw me like the Jordan thing did.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting around, yeah. And I hope to God the quarantine's still not going on. I think the Jordan thing was good, but I think, Aldo, at the end, they had to remember, they rushed this thing.
Yes.
They were so they had to rush things.
Right.
They weren't ready, they couldn't look at things as long as they thought.
Right.
They couldn't, their decision making had to be shorter.
Right.
It's like telling somebody they was given a year to make a movie. They only got 6 months.
Yes.
You know something's going to go wrong.
Yes. And the director said in an interview that typically he would have 4 or 5 editing rooms, and he would be able to go from editing room to editing room, sit down with the editor and say this and that. Instead, because of the quarantine, he was sent files. He would look at the video, then send his comments back, and then he would get files from another editor. And that's not a good way to work, you know? So besides what you just said about having to rush things, the working conditions made it less than conducive. But in the end, it was good stuff, you know? Hey, one other thing.
Well, what it really makes me feel good about Michael is basically he finally woke up that to have any kind of conscious thought now as you get older, you have to have a vat of scotch next to you during the shooting, okay? Wait, your eyes are bloodshot like a bloodhound now, and you've probably put on about 25 pounds. Welcome to us.
Exactly.
Hey,
Welcome.
Mr. Superstar, how's things going? You're filling in that T-shirt pretty good.
I remember him saying, you know, when he was asked, what are you looking forward most to retirement? He said, I'm looking forward to having a pot belly. He said that many times.
And he accomplished that.
That's right.
And I'm here. But you know what I heard? I heard he don't give a rooty tooty about. He's got Jumpman 23. I follow Michael, and Michael does maybe aware of things, but I heard he don't care about nothing. He's Michael Jordan. He's retired, and he plays 36 holes every day, which means you will never win an NBA championship as a general manager.
That's right.
You can't do that.
You can't.
And
That's
expect
right.
to win. So if you want to be mad at us, at Charles or anybody else, Barkley, for saying you're never going to win that way. And that's the surprising thing out of all of this that I got out. And you notice not a whole lot of talk about what he does now. Which is loose. Which is loose.
That's right. Over and over again.
And I cannot believe that out of Larry Bird's been the most successful executive of the year, coach of the year, and Jordan and Magic, they're the guys bumping into each other, you know? And I expected more out of Michael. I did.
Yeah.
I expected more. I'd like to see Charlotte up there, but man, it looks like he's there for the gravy. That's it.
Yeah, maybe one of the general managers in the NBA needs to do some trash talking to get him motivated to do his job.
Yeah, because if you step on his foot and you're on your way to the L, he'll hunt you down and kill you. I mean, my God. The guy, I remember George Karl walked by me, and Karl admits it.
That's right.
And Michael said, that's it for you. Wow.
Oh, my goodness. Hey,
What can I tell you?
I'll tell you one documentary that I'm looking forward to that ESPN is presenting on June 7th. It's called Be Water. It's a look at the life of martial arts icon Bruce Lee. Were you a big Bruce Lee fan growing up?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Let me tell you something. I could care less about. Look. I don't like science fiction flicks, but I loved Flash Gordon. Okay, and I could care less about martial arts, unless somebody's coming after me that knows it. Okay,
That's right.
then all of a sudden I take a sincere interest. That being said, I loved Bruce Lee. I went to see Enter the Dragon when it came out with John Saxon and Jabbar, and I also watched documentaries on him, and I love the guy that played him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I looked him up. He looks like Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
I admire Cassius Clay. I do. Yeah, and then he gets thrown into the car. I love that whole. That's one of my favorite parts of the movie because I was a huge Bruce Lee fan.
Yeah.
Really was.
Same here. I would go down.
He was box office, man.
Oh, big time. Big time. I will go down to the downtown theaters to watch his movies. I remember at one point they had a triple feature over at the McVickers Theater with The Chinese Connection, Fists of Fury, and I forgot what the third one was. But I go in there and everybody in the theater is just like talking back at the screen. Go get him, Bruce! Go get him, Bruce! And it was a tremendous experience. It was outstanding.
Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
I look at Jackie Chan and I go, Bruce Lee would kick your ass within 3 minutes. That's how I looked at him.
That's absolutely.
I mean, he looks more like a maitre d' at a restaurant than he does a superhero. Van Damme, Siegel, these guys. To me, the most authentic and the guy that trained the hardest was Bruce Lee.
Yep.
I don't buy his death. I don't get it. You know?
Well,
was it marijuana?
No, it was some weird blood issue. You know, I think that he was. Well, a lot of people speculated that he was doing a lot of marijuana, and that might have contributed to the aneurysm that he had.
I thought marijuana was supposed to make you relax and stuff.
That's what I thought too. I don't know.
I didn't think if you smoked it and you were a martial art, there's a chance you'll die from it. You know.
Yep.
But he had a girlfriend, and he was married. He had a complicated life.
Yep.
And
this is going to be a great
good.
documentary.
I love Bruce Lee.
Yeah. You know what? I got to tell you.
That's the one I'll watch.
Yeah.
James Colbert, who I used to love, in like Our Man Flint movies, the Magnificent Seven. Big apostle of Bruce Lee.
That's right. Bruce used to train a lot of Hollywood actors and stuff.
Yep.
Here's the one thing about Bruce Lee that I just, leave it to Hollywood executives to not recognize that this guy had everything that it took to be a great big Hollywood star. Instead, he had to move to Hong Kong to be in movies and stuff. And it wasn't until he was famous throughout Asia and that part of the world that they finally brought him back to Hollywood. He made Enter the Dragon, but they lost 5-6 years of making movies with Bruce Lee. The guy had great looks. The guy was a physical presence on the screen. The guy had everything to be a major movie star in Hollywood, and it took him going to Hong Kong and proving it.
Yeah.
So,
Clint Eastwood had to go to Italy because he had been typecast.
Yes.
Guess what? A Western hero in Rawhide.
Yes.
But when I got to be honest with you, when I would watch Clint Eastwood on Rawhide, see, I saw DiCaprio. When I first saw DiCaprio in this boy's life, I told Bibi, he's going to be a star, that kid. And he was. I saw De Niro. When I saw him, not in Mean Streets. When I saw De Niro in Godfather 2, I said to B, this guy is the next big thing. I didn't see that all the time with other people, you know? So Clint Eastwood, I didn't see it. That he had to go to Italy. Like Bruce had to go to Hong Kong to come back. I just watched The Good, the Bad, the Ugly the other night with Eli Wallach. Everybody's favorite Jewish Mexican, as I always say it. Nobody plays a better Mexican than Eli Wallach. He plays a better Mexican than some Mexican. And he's fantastic in it. And Lee Van Cleef, he had to go over there, and then they came back and did one here, which sucked. But, I mean, sometimes that's what you got to do. But I got to be honest with you. Yeah, the first time I saw Bruce Lee, I said, what was Kato? The Green Hornet.
That's right.
He stole the God-blessed show from Van Williams.
Exactly. Everybody would tune in to watch the Green Hornet because of Kato. We wanted more scenes with Kato.
Right. Kato would do 3 minutes. I'd have to watch Van Williams romance a woman in a mask for about 25 minutes.
That's right.
Okay? Let's get to the ass-kicking part of the segment, please. Let's move this thing along. Bruce Lee, I'll give you another guy. And I hope Henry Winkler's listening, and why wouldn't he? Maybe I'll tag him on this.
There you go.
The first scene stealer of all time in network television was Eddie Haskell, was Ken Osborne on a show called Leave It to Beaver. When you watch that show, I could care less about Jerry Mathers, Tony Dow, any award. I liked Hugh Beaumont.
Yeah.
June. No. Lumpy, Rutherford, I know them all. But when Eddie Haskell came on the set, he was the first Fonzie.
Yep,
he was the first guy to basically, they were promised him, just like Henry Winkler, one episode. And the next thing you know, both guys were the guys you look forward to seeing on their shows.
Yeah, it was a great role for the kid. He played that guy that, everybody has a friend like Eddie Haskell where he's so nice.
I was called that by my friend's parents, I got to be honest.
Oh, really?
Mrs. Sam called me that. Mrs. DeJolio. Oh, you seem like Eddie Haskell sometimes. Yeah, I guess I sort of was. But believe me, he was a scene stealer. Wouldn't you say, Elds? He was a scene stealer along with Henry Winkler because I could care less about the rest of them when he came on.
Absolutely. I am totally with you. All right, Mike, I think we have put another one in the books that people will be talking about for years. Another great show.
Yeah, the podcast went up in about a half an hour.
Yeah, we'll put it up in about 20 minutes.
As usual. Great production.
Yeah.
What can I tell you, folks? Aldo gets it done. That's it.
Hey, and
Bear Barham. He is the godfather, folks. I don't know if you know this. Of Bears Barham.
And let people know about Friday's show with Carmen.
7 o'clock, new time, which we're excited about, on AM 1000, and then 8 o'clock for the encore, and then it'll be up on our podcast page, which we have now. So they're doing a great job, and I appreciate everything over there. But also my partner here and my buddy Aldo, ladies and gentlemen, the godfather of the barroom, Gandia.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Did you get your business cards made out like that?
That's a great idea.
So long, everybody!